So, fun fact I learned today. Do you want to hear the fun fact I learned?
Yes.
Apparently, being on testosterone can make your nose grow and your ears and then
Really?
your joints.
Oh, so you can get like a tiny bit taller?
Uh, technically, yeah, I would assume, but I think it happens more frequently with like your feet and then your nose and then your ears. So your nose can get bigger
Interesting.
because it like builds
It's a joint.
cartilage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it gets thicker, that's what it is. It gets thicker. That was an
That makes
interesting
sense.
fact I've learned today.
I wonder if my nose has gotten bigger. I already have a pretty big nose. I don't like
That's
to
why I
say that
was
out
like,
loud.
I think my nose is just the same big as it was before.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we're still too early, who knows?
Maybe I should start being consistent and then I would
Oh,
see a
there's
difference in my
there's that
nose.
too, yeah. Welcome to Two Guys Unfiltered, a podcast where trans people share their coming out stories, the funny ones, the hard ones, and everything in between. I'm Juju.
And I'm August, so whether you're trans, questioning, or just here to learn, we're glad you're here. Our guest today is Marisol. She shared what being gender fluid means to her and how that has influenced her transition journey. So we want to know from you guys, what are some misconceptions about gender fluidity that you've heard? Leave your answers in the comments so we can see if your thoughts or opinions have changed after hearing our guest story. Now let's get into it. All right. So, Marisol, if you can you give us a little introduction of who you are?
Marisol, or just I go by Mari. And uh, my pronouns shift depending on how I'm presenting from time to time. So right now it would be she, her, but my other half is still very much a part of me. And depending on who we are that day, that's how we prefer our pronouns to be said. But yeah. Mhm.
Cool.
So,
And then, if we want to talk about it, if you want to share what you do for work, how that goes.
yes. So I'm actually a oh god, I'm like blanking on my own role. Hello. I am a waiter at Disneyland. So I do table service, restaurants. Um, Cafe Orleans is my home location. And also I'm at Wine Country Trattoria and Magic Key Terrace.
And would you say it's relatively like trans inclusive or accepted?
Really. That was one of the things like that really kind of allowed me to sort of make the final jump into exploring who I really was. Because a few years back, not too long after the shutdown, when we came back up, Disney has always had these like, or our company has always had these core tenants. The four keys is what they were originally called: safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. And we recently added a fifth one, which is inclusion. And it just literally wedged itself right in the middle of the other five. So it's our third key. But they were making a big push to really like show that we were being inclusive to all walks of life, all individuals, et cetera, et cetera. Um, that was kind of the thing that really allowed me to be like, hey, maybe I can bring this side of myself out a little more frequently at work. And it was definitely a nerve wracking experience taking that first step, especially, Disneyland, there's thousands of people every single day. And then not just that, but like all the people that you work with, and like they're used to seeing you one way, and then it's like, surprise, I'm here as somebody different today. And it was just like, how's that going to go? And luckily it went over like it was the easiest thing in the world. It took a few people a couple seconds to be like, but like for the most part, everyone was just like, okay, moving on.
That's good to hear because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, their like employment is like the place that brings them the most anxiety when it comes to transitioning.
Yeah.
But that's also to hear that like it was kind of like a support system to help you express your gender.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Honestly, yeah, no, Disney, my Disney fam, shout out to all y'all, you know who you are. They are like they're the most supportive, I think. So my place of work is actually now my safe haven. It's where I go to like really be myself and whoever, and I I feel like, or at least if they do, I haven't seen it. It's, it might be like hush hush, or I have had a couple of cast members recently who came and told me, it's like, I didn't know how to feel about it at first, but as time went on, it's just like, oh yeah, it's just, they're them, just slightly different.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really good to hear because like we don't hear workspaces really often like in a positive way. It's more of like a negative way. So that's really good.
I definitely understand that. I feel like Disney is kind of unique um, in that sense. It's, I think other places might be maybe like a little bit too more streamlined, and just, it's like, the inclusion isn't our thing. And then I think we've seen, so many instances of all these, businesses that have just so easily excluded DEI initiatives and stuff like that because
Hmm.
that doesn't really matter to them. I think at Disney, it's just, it's such a big part of already the company at large that excluding us would, look pretty bad. It's just kind of easier to go with an inclusion initiative because it's already such a big part anyway. It's not really that huge a shift.
Right.
And if you want to give us a summary of your coming out story, when did you come out?
Has been a process, and it's still kind of ongoing, because I struggled with figuring out my own gender identity, my own, just so many steps, like my own sexuality, my gender identity, like everything. Because I grew up in a fairly I guess it's kind of conservative, but not like in the traditional sense of what people might think like of conservatism, but like conservative Christian, um, or, Catholic um, household was very important growing up. That's still pretty important to me, obviously, and like just um, unfortunately with the way certain tenets are taught, it's just like your your view of what you are supposed to be is kind of set in stone. And then so when you start experiencing things in your own life that sort of go against that, it's like, well, what do I do with this? Like I can't go to like my priest and talk about it because they're just going to say, well, no, that's not right. Like whatever it's supposed to be this way, da 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 da. Like I was an altar server for, many years. And one of my our original the founding pastor of my church was like convinced that I was going to, join the religious life and I was going to become a priest. Like that was, sort of his view for me. And um, at some like I didn't have anything against that per se. Like it was kind of an honor to think that he thought that highly of me. But at the same time, I'm just like, don't know that that's exactly the route that I'm going to pursue. And then as life went on and I started, feeling sort of things that were different from what I had been taught in the church, I was like, yeah, no, that's definitely not going to be a thing anymore. Um, but like, it's just kind of strange to sort of like both dichotomies, like still very closely tied to the church because obviously I had a lot of people that respected me in the church because they knew me as the longtime altar server, and then I went a step up above that and became a sacristan. So I was kind of like I reported directly to the priest and helped with mass and et cetera, et cetera. And that was really important to me. It was nice to be a part of something, to be actively involved in my faith community in my church. But at the same time, I had these, new developing um, thoughts and interests that didn't quite jive 100% with what I was being taught or perceived to be taught in the church. Fortunately, I found some other like minded individuals in my church that were like, yeah, we are religious, but we don't always agree with everything that comes down from, the church. Um, church doctrine, we sort of have to figure out how to work with it in our lives. And that was like, okay, so I can be both things. And I sort of think that has been the my whole thing going forward now is I don't need to pick between this half of myself or this half of myself. I can literally just be, I can be all of it because it's all me.
So you're not having to like balance the religion aspect or like your beliefs and stuff with like who you are as a person. And it could just be like one.
At, yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, it all just kind of like it all meshes, it all ties in. My view of my religion, like especially the whole idea that, you know, God creates everyone perfect, right? So some people um and especially transphobes love to use that of, well, if you were created perfect as, you know, as a woman, why would you want to become a man or vice versa, da 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 da, because that's changing that perfection. And it's like, no, 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 that's not the way to think about it. It's, my way of thinking is your soul is perfect, right? And so you then can build on that, develop that into what you want that to look like while still keeping that soul intact. The spirit of you is perfect, and then it's really kind of a challenge, I think, to others to look at that and accept that person for that perfection. And that is unfortunately difficult for a lot of people to do, which is kind of funny because in our religion, we are really taught not to judge. That's like one of the number one tenets, first being to, love God, love your neighbor, don't be so judgmental.
Right.
I love the saying, there's no love like Christian hate.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And it's kind of, it's repulsive to me because it's not, those aren't my views. Like I'm still a very proud Christian. I am a proud Catholic. Um and you know, with the way that I want to be presented, you love people. You treat people with respect and dignity that they all deserve.
And how old were you when you started like taking those steps to look and be perceived a certain way?
Like my first baby steps, oh God, like 2017, 2016. So how old was I? I have to do math. um, let's see, hello. So I'd have been like 18, 19, 20s, somewhere right in there. Um, so yeah, that's like, I, the person I was dating at the time, was the world in a completely different way than I think most people would consider normal, which I don't care for that word myself. But her her viewpoint of the world was very, just artistic, creative, kind of everything goes. And that sort of helped me to myself and kind of start to develop that. That was my first time really at the time what I considered cross-dressing. And then I, came to feel eventually later that it was just dressing. Like I liked the way I looked both ways, and I just wanted to explore that more. But outside of my time with her, like in certain safe spaces, like I couldn't do it at home. It just obviously wasn't something that I was going to do at church. So I was like, well, I guess this isn't really going to go anywhere. And when with her ended, um, I started dating, somebody else, and their worldview was a little more traditional.
Mhm.
And so I I couldn't explore that side of myself with her either. And at the time, honestly, I sort of felt like there was no support structure there. So there wasn't anything at home. I couldn't practice with my, significant other. Like, I'm just at that time, I was just like, well, I guess it was fun while it lasted, but that's going to be the end of that.
Like, you were
And
just kinda
so
having to, like, bottle it up and, like, kinda push it down?
it was going to go away. I was just going to be my male self for the rest of my life. And not that there was necessarily anything like wrong with that per se for me, because I like my male self. But I was just like, well, I guess we're ditching the female half and just we're going straight with being Carlos all the time. Um, and it wasn't until the exclusion key rolled around that that whole conversation just changed. And not only did I double down, like I quadrupled down on it. And I was just like, okay, it's not gone. It's gonna be a thing, and we're gonna see where it goes. And fortunately for me, it's gone very well. So
That's good. So as far as, like, reactions from people, did you wanna talk a little bit about that?
like I said, my reaction from people at work was mostly positive. Didn't really have anybody that it took a couple of double takes just to kind of for people to get their bearings, but afterwards they're like, okay, so how do you want to be addressed? Blah blah blah. And I mean, one of my managers was so quick to like on day one, she's like, well, like what name do you want to go by? I was like, well, I want to go by Mari. And she's like, well, let me go find a name tag real quick, and da da da. And went and found me a name tag uh, that I could use until I could get one actually issued by the company. Um, as far as my family, I have not come out to everybody. I'm still kind of picking and choosing who I'm coming out to, little bits at a time. So I've come out to a couple of aunts, uncles, cousins. To my aunts and uncles, it's been most the ones that I have come out to. It's been mostly positive and receptive. Um, my brother, he obviously I think he would prefer to see me as, as my male self, as Carlos all the time. Um, and then I never came out to my father. Um, in fact, most of this, like, 10 days, if you want to call it, really sort of happened um, as he was at the end of his life. So, like, he was in the hospital when I first started, you know, at work, and he passed away shortly afterwards. And then I feel like after he was gone is when I really went full steam ahead into my dual persona. Um, it's definitely not something that he would have ever understood. I think so. He was an older man. Grew up in an entirely different generation. He had very like clear cut views of what the world was supposed to be, what people how people should act and stuff like that. That's not to say that he was not a loving man, because he absolutely was. He just had his own way of loving each of us. I know myself and my four brothers, we all had our own unique difficulties with him. Um, there was no denying that he loved us. He just would not have understood this. One time, or he found some of my clothes, I should say, and he threw them out because I shouldn't have them. That wasn't the kind of thing that a boy should have.
Do you say like his passing was kind of like this? Well, you said you were like kind of starting to before he passed away, right? So you would say that that kind of sparked you to like have the freedom and the comfortability to start changing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely made things easier because I could, I could go to work like this and not have to worry about, oh my gosh, what if I have to go to the hospital real quick to, take care of something with him, because like I would have had to have changed and everything before like going and seeing him. Because I wound up coming out to my mom, and she's still not like 100%. She doesn't like completely understand it or get why it needs to be a thing, but at least I can be like this in front of her and she's not going to freak out. Um, it's refer to me, that, oh, this is my son, even though I'm like full on like a girl at that point. And I'm just like, you know what, it's fine. Like it doesn't bother me, because at the end of the day, yeah, I am still her son, but I'm also her daughter too. So like,
Picking and
I-
choosing your battles.
yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say fluidity and non-binary means to you?
Um, I always felt that like gender norms were just sort of social constructs for, so many of them have switched throughout the course of history. Like it's hard to tell what was originally considered a masculine role versus what wasn't. And you're always going to get those people that say, well, obviously men have always been better at blah, 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 blah. And for the most part, that's true, but that's never always the full story. And to me, that's, the main thing to kind of like take of this is that so many different shades of gray and, just all these other varying colors. Like you can't just set a boundary and be like, well, this is this. And that's the end of the story. It's just like the only like certain thing in life is that life is uncertain. And so for me, like gender fluidity falls right into that. And, you know, we can be whatever we want to be. We can just like, I guess for me too, part of it is I'm a water sign. And so I flow into whatever container I happen to find myself in at the time. And, I fill it to the best of my ability. And it was really kind of interesting because my wife actually pointed out to me the other day, she's like, when you're on the phone with somebody, and I do know this to be true too, like she's absolutely right. When I'm on the phone with certain people, like my voice will change or my tone will change. I find myself like I leave voicemails like my dad. When I talk to my brothers, uh, my southern accent starts coming out because a lot of them are in the South. I spent time in the South, so it's just like that'll come back. Even when I'm at work, like when I'm at Cafe Orleans, oh my God, does my southern accent ever come out when I'm at Cafe Orleans? Especially if I'm tired, I just go onto like a full on drawl, and like it just I'm if somebody starts speaking in a different accent, I might start like being like a chameleon and copying that. Like I don't even think about it. It just starts happening. And so she's like, you're so many different people. And honestly, if you were to ask me like who the real me is, I would not be able to give you a solid answer, because there's just so many different versions of me and it just changes on a dime. But it's all me. And it's like, I still remember what happened with it, da da da. Or I still remember the conversation we had the other day, even if I was Carlos when we had that conversation and I'm Mari now, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. Like that still all happened. It was still all, relevant in the time. And so that's what that fluidity literally means to me is I'm going with the flow.
I like that. I've always wanted a pet chameleon. That just reminded me of that. Sorry, that was so random.
You have your own
Yeah.
your Pascal, he's just sitting on your
Right.
on your shoulder. Freaking love Tangled, by the way. My favorite. One of my favorite
Definitely.
movies.
Solid movie.
Breaking news!
Earlier this week in San Diego, 2 transgender women were injured when someone fired a pellet gun from a passing truck outside of an LGBTQ plus bar. A similar drive-by shooting happened the same night at another bar. Though no one was hurt there, Police are investigating but have not classified this incident as a hate crime at this stage. The events have left the local LGBTQ plus communities concerned and are calling for strong safety measures.
In June, the Department of Justice sent subpoenas to 20 medical providers who offer gender-affirming care to trans youth. Under the pretense of investigating healthcare fraud, information from patients such as their social security numbers, emails, home addresses, and information about how the care they received was demanded. In a victory for trans youth and their families, a federal judge blocked the subpoena, stating he was not persuaded in the least by the DOJ's rationale for needing such information.
The big news in the U.S. politics. Representative Robert Garcia, who is openly gay, just reintroduced a bill to make protecting LGBTQ rights a priority in the U.S. foreign policy. The plan would create a special envoy at the State Department to help fight discrimination and violence against LGBTQ people around the world. Garcia says that equality isn't guaranteed even here in the U.S., and the bill is backed by major LGBTQ plus groups. Basically, it's a move to make sure the U.S. is standing up for LGBTQ rights everywhere, not just at home.
If you want to read more into these stories, the links to the articles will be in the description below. And you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but what would you say has been the hardest part of your transition so far?
Come out to. And I think just taking that first initial step of, coming out at work. I mean, I was on pins and needles when I went to work my first day. Um, as Maddie, like I was just going through a million different ways of like, how are people going to react to me? Like, all they've known up to this point is Carlos, and I mean, it's just like I'm gonna go in there. It's like at the time I was a lead, and so I was actually helping out at both Cafe Orleans and Blue Bayou as a lead, and I was just like the Blue Bayou crowd tends to be a little bit older, the cast members who work there, and I was really concerned that a lot of them might like some of them might say something. Um, there's a couple of them that I know are Trump supporters, and so I was just like, how's that gonna go? But for the most part, I it just turned into a non-issue, and I think that was so relieving to just, to have because I was so nervous going in, and then I got there, and it was just like, oh yeah, nobody gives a flying, you know what, and we're just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
I stressed out for
So,
nothing.
yeah, exactly. So definitely, there's still some issues. Um, a little bit of difficulty with my wife, and how like she wants me to be and how like she would prefer that I present. Things have gotten better though with us, so we're definitely working on it. Um, and it's definitely a two-way street. I don't want to like put any blame on her and for how you know, she married a certain version of me. That was what she went into this relationship expecting. And so this is like a complete topsy-turvy situation for her to like all of a sudden have to basically deal with an entirely new personality. Um, and so I do give her a lot of credit for, toughing it out, even though it's not exactly what she wants. So,
And it's not
um,
an easy thing to do either, like on both sides. Like obviously on your end, you want her to just love you and that's it, like end of story. But then on her side, it's like we said, she married a different version of you. So trying to get used to that doesn't happen overnight.
one of the biggest lessons of all of this and even I think just for like anyone is patience really is a virtue.
Hmm.
And that street runs both ways. We other people as they come into accepting or learning about the new us. And I think, like especially with our parents, people that have known us for a long time, there is a certain amount of patience that we need to hold as long as we can see that an effort is being, made somewhere or that they might be taking time to process all of this. Um, And we have to realize that sometimes things aren't going to move as quickly as we want them to. Because progress is never easy, and it is oftentimes slow as molasses in January. So as long, to quote Abraham Lincoln, I may be a slow walker, but at least I never walk backwards. That's the thing that we have to strive for.
Yeah.
We're still moving forward, even if it might be the teeniest, tiniest steps in the world,
Right.
because at least progress is still being made.
I mean, and I can like relate to, because I was married to my wife for almost, I think we almost hit 3 years. And then I came out to her. So then in my brain, it was like, oh, well, she married a woman. Like, I'm supposed to be her wife. And now I'm coming out to tell her, like, I'm your husband. And like,
Yeah.
I don't hear like a lot of positive stories when it comes to it, or like when I tell people, like, oh, yeah, we're still together. And like, things have actually gotten like 10 times better. And they're like, oh, like surprised by it. So it's like, it's interesting to hear like the other side of the stories too. But as long as, I mean, it's getting better, like you said, then that's all that matters.
I think a lot of things that requires work, right? So
Yes.
that's people unfortunately want things to be easy nowadays, and it's been my experience so far that anything worth doing is never easy.
Right.
My dad always used to say, "Beware of simple tasks," and it's really been,
It's not as
you
simple
know,
as it seems.
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. And so on the flip side, what would you say has been the most joyful or affirming part of your transition?
Oh, God. So many things. Like literally, the first time I got complimented on my makeup, or like, it's like, oh, your outfit came together really good. It's like, just, because I always used to get told, I'm sorry, I'm going to sound like really freaking conceited right now, but it's like, I always just get told, oh, you're so handsome, it's like, because so my style is kind of like vintagey.
Okay.
Um, like I love wearing three-piece suits. Um, I've always wanted to get a pinstripe suit. Like I love that era. I love, when Dapper Day comes around at Disneyland, I love the style, stuff like that. So like the 50s, 20s, all that sort of style. Um, and so, I mean, I have three different suits. I have like a plethora of ties, shirts of all different types of colors. I raided my dad's closet after he passed away, and I was like, I never knew you had all these colorful shirts. Why were you always hiding these? And just like, so I took them all and I started wearing them, um, and like just mixing and matching and stuff like that. So then to be able to do that in this version was just like chef's kiss, like you know, excellent. There's another thing that I can do both ways. So, but definitely, when I'm taking orders and stuff like that, a mom will tell their kids like, "Well, tell her what you want." I'm like, that's so massively affirming to be addressed by the gender that I'm showing that day. Uh, so it's just joyful, like so much of it. Um,
It's interesting because like people think it's like small, like just like, people that are strictly with like their binary. And it's like like such a big deal to us, but then like it's like hard because you can't show it when it happens in public. And you're just gonna be like, cool, cool as a cucumber, and then just move on. But like inside you're like eternally like freaking out. So
Honestly, now, like, too, like, even though I'm passing, because I work with little kids and we work on like having them recognize what pronouns are, right? So, like, you use he, him pronouns for someone that's appearing as a dude, she, her pronouns for someone that's appearing as a femme, right? And it's so I get so giddy every time they say like him when they point at me because I'm like, yes, that is me. Like you got it right.
Yeah, and honestly, because I've worked with kids in the past too. I was in education for 5 years, and kids are brutally honest. And so
Yes.
like, because I had one time at one of my tables, it's like, aren't you a boy? And the mom's like, shh. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's fine. Like the kids are gonna say what they're gonna say, and then
Hmm.
honestly, it's just that natural, curiosity, and they call shots straight,
Oh
like
yeah.
super straight. So, Yeah, no, it's definitely if you've got the kids correctly identifying you now,
Yeah.
you're set.
I'm like the cool dude at the center now. Like I'm the one that makes them run around. I'm the one that chases them, like being that figure for them is like, whoa, I was able to succeed.
And what are
Wow.
some of the different ways that you express your gender?
An interesting question. I mean, outside of like just sort of the basic stuff of, my clothes and my outward appearance, like that's kind of the main thing. So, I've been growing my hair out. This is not my natural hair, my weave. Shut up. But like, growing my hair out, growing my nails a little bit longer than I used to. I mean, this actually helps because I used to be notorious for biting my nails. And so now, like, luckily because I like the way my nails look, I don't bite them anymore. Like I might still sort of trim a little bit at, the corners or whatever, but I don't like full on bite my nail. I used to go at them all the damn time.
That's
And
me right now.
so,
Always.
yeah.
24/7. Don't look at them.
It's like, but I mean, just little things, and like honestly, a full on answer. It's just like, okay, well, this is going to be me today, and then boom, boom, boom. Or it's like, no, I'm not feeling it, so I'm just gonna, throw on one of my suits or throw on my other costume or whatever, and just that's also gonna be me. And so I guess I don't give it as much thought as like most people would assume I have to. The only thing that I do have to think about is if I have a deadline or if I have a timeline for I need to be somewhere at such and such a time. It's like, okay, well, if I want to go as Mari today, I need to give myself this much extra time to prep. Like Carlos is honestly the lazy like one because it's like I throw on my 3-piece suit and it takes me like 15 minutes, and I'm just like and I'm set and comb my hair and I'm off. But like to do my makeup and all my other stuff takes me like almost an hour. So
You
it's
gotta
like
wake up extra early just in case you're feeling the way you didn't
I
expect to feel.
yes, I mean, mornings and I have an agreement. They don't
Okay.
mess with me and I don't mess with them. So, um, normally all of my shifts are later at night. So I have enough time during the day to figure out what am I doing today? How am I going? So, yeah,
That's helpful. Less stress to the factor.
a lot less. Yeah. So there have only been a few times where I've had a morning shift and I'm like, okay, well, how do I want to be that day? It's
Mhm.
like, okay, so do I need to get up earlier?
And so speaking of that, how do you know how you want to be perceived that day? Like, is there just a feeling that you have? I don't know how to explain
So,
it or ask.
so most times it will sort of depend on what location I'm at, my home location and the location that knew Carlos the most. Um, Capital tends to get Carlos more often than not. So that tends to be one of the ones where it's like, okay, is Mari going to go to cafe today or is she not? Um, and so that's the only place where I do have to sometimes consider like, are we shifting? Or are we not? If I'm at Magic Key, it's always going to be Mari. Like Carlos will show up there every so often, like once in a great blue moon. And that's maybe because we didn't have enough time to get ready or there was some other extraneous circumstance. But um, like Magic Key Terrace and just Golden Vine in general is Mari's home. That was the place where she first really started, or where I first really started, going like this all the time as work. And that just feels more at home over there, like this version of me there. Um, when it comes to just like being at home or hanging out with friends, for the most part, it's just going to be Carlos all the time because it takes a lot less effort. um, but like there are certain times where it's like if I'm going to have a certain gathering of friends, like I might want to be Mari that day, and just yeah, like that. So
And would you still prefer being called Mari if you were masculine presenting?
like if somebody called me Mari, though, it's not still who I am, so it's not
Okay.
gonna like it doesn't offend me or anything like that. I'm just like, if somebody was to call me Carlos right now, it's like, again, that is still who I am.
Gotcha.
It's just, it's, I would prefer, obviously, being referred to a certain way, but it's not the end of the world for me, as long as I know they're not doing it like maliciously.
Right.
And most people that, that slip up, they aren't. And they'll catch themselves and they'll be like, oh crap, I meant to say, like, don't worry about it. Like, it doesn't bother me. Now that might be kind of unique to me. I understand, if people are getting misgendered, um, they might find that offensive, and that's totally their prerogative. But for me, I sort of look at, um, because most people have known me a certain way, if they're gonna misgender me one way or another, I know 9 times out of 10 it's not on purpose, and so it doesn't offend me.
And would you say, like, depending on how you're presenting that day, do people treat you different, or is it sort of just, like, the same?
No, they absolutely treat me different. So, and actually, I had a conversation with one of my other cast members, a fellow Carlos, actually, um, and I jokingly say he's my older, more handsome version of me. Um, but he and I were LRs together one day, and we were just kind of talking about it in general. And he's like, I like when Carlos comes to the restaurant a little bit more often because it was like we jokingly say we're part of the Carlos Club, and because we're the only two in the restaurant, and now there's a third one. We're like, should we induct him into the Carlos Club or not? But um, it's like, are we accepting new members right now? But his whole thing is like, he jokes around with men differently. He's like, yeah, when Mari's here, like, because she's a lady, and I feel like I need to be like a certain way around her, and I can't say some of the things that I say. I'm like, Carlos, it's still me at the end of the day. It's like, we might not be card carrying members of the Carlos Club that day, but like, you can still joke with me. It's like, no, I have to be nicer to Mari. And I'm like, oh, okay, Carlos, like whatever you want to do. Um, and like, it's funny because I know there are certain people. Sorry about the clock, by the way. Forgot to silence that. But anyway, um, there are some people that like prefer one version of me to show up to work than another. And I'm just like, well, you're getting what you're getting, and
Right.
tough bananas. Um, but it is kind of funny to see how how some people like really do shift how they interact with me, depending on whether or not I'm Carlos or I'm Mari that day.
That's so cute that you have that relationship with other Carlos. Because, like, I feel like
Yeah.
you don't get that very much from cis men. So that's very wholesome, like, for him to do.
Well, he's my homie for sure. So he's only ever there on the weekends, and I love it when we're there together. He's a lot of fun.
And what hopes do you have for the future, either for yourself or for the trans community, gender fluid community as a whole?
The main thing is just honestly just acceptance. Like, you know, uh, we need to stop drawing lines between ourselves. And that's just, sort of like also the LGBT community at large. Like, it's like, well, we have all these letters and you have to fall specifically within each letter or otherwise. It's like, no, it's a whole community. Like, the Q part stands for queer, which encompasses literally everything. And, the less we try to divide ourselves, the more cohesive unit we are, the more we're going to inspire others to really be able to accept us, because it's just like, well, we're just people just like you. We have our challenges, we have our lives. Just because we all see the world through different eyes and different lenses, it's those differing perspectives that make the world a better place. you know and being able to accept that versus be like, well, no, you're just wrong, and shut people down. It's like, you can't look at it that way. you know um and the hard part is doing it in reverse, because when you have somebody that's like so hardcore in their you know religious belief, or their, it's like, men are men and women are women, and that's the end of that. It's just like, okay, why do you think that way? for us to be able to ask that question and to be able to look at it, it's like, okay, well, I don't agree with you, but whatever, you do you, as long as you're not trying to, really do anything negative to me. You go be off in a corner. I'm gonna be over here. Feel like Johnny Depp from Pirates 3. It's like nobody, come to see me just because they miss me. I'm standing over there with them. So
Yeah, it's like if you don't respect me or accept my identity, like that's it. End of discussion. Just keep trekking. Like you don't have to keep pestering me about it. You've already made your
go,
point.
you made your point. Go about your
Yeah.
business. Because I'm not going to change your mind. You're not going to change mine.
Exactly.
So, at that point, why waste your breath? I'm not going to waste mine. I'm going to be over here with my people.
Yeah.
It's like if you ever change your mind, you're more than welcome to come join us. We're here.
And I feel
But
like
until
people who think that way get so hurt when you have that kind of stance about it. But it's like, what else how else do you want me to react to that?
Right.
key, August, is they want you to react because that's half the battle, for them. Like in their mind, if I got a reaction out of you, it's like whether especially if it's a mad reaction, some people just want to fight and they don't care what they're fighting about. They just want to
That's
fight.
true.
And so I've experienced that at work too. It's always funny to me, the people that get increasingly upset when you're just like, you're super nice to them. I've had somebody get up in my face and like call me every like slur in the book and this was back when I was just Carlos 100% of the time at work. I was forget what I was doing, but I was basically enforcing a rule and they were upset about it. And like, they started getting madder and madder and just going like, okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but unfortunately, this is the rule. And if you want to talk to somebody else, I can get that person for you. Like, I'm more than happy to help you. Well, da 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 da. It's just like, okay, well, and just like cool as a cucumber. And they're getting madder and madder because they want to get a rise out of you, because for them, that's winning the fight. It's like the moment they made you mad, they win.
Yeah.
And
Disney
so,
customer service is a whole other level. I don't know how y'all do it.
I mean, I've had stuff thrown at me, like it's crazy, crazy stuff. And we have to be the bigger people. But I think in a way that kind of helps because, it teaches you a little bit of that self-control. And, it teaches you to not be so reactionary. Problem solving is something that you really have to be able to do. And then also being able to speak to people with a certain modicum of tact, which, as the great Winston Churchill once said, is the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip.
I love the history quotes.
Historian by nature, it was what I studied when I went to Cal State Fullerton. So
Okay.
it's always going to be a part of me.
Love it.
And the more you know about history too, the more you can kind of look at where we're going in today's society and either be slightly freaked out by it or be reassured that these are all things that have kind of echoed in past before. And unfortunately, there are hardships that we will have to go through again and again, but things always get better.
Definitely. Yes.
It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's one way to look at it, because if you get bogged down just thinking about all the negatives, it doesn't leave any room for improvement. You have to always believe. If you believe in your heart and soul that there is going to be a better tomorrow, then you can make it happen. And you tell yourself, well, all is lost and why even try? Then all is lost.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you don't
Becomes
feel
a
motivated to try if you're thinking that way.
exactly. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
So the mind is a powerful tool and can also be a powerful weapon.
All right. So that's a wrap on today's episode of Two Guys Unfiltered. A huge thank you to Mari for sharing her story. If today's episode resonated with you or reminded you of your own, we would love to hear from you. Click the link in the description below to fill out the form if you're interested in being our next guest.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye.